Hello, Bravo lovers. I hope everyone's doing well out there. I have a special treat for you. For all those Below Deck fans out there, I have on today's episode Alex Propson from season 4 of Below Deck Sailing Yacht, and he was wonderful. He is exactly how he is on the television show. He is cool, calm, collected, humble, and I had a great conversation with him. He gave me over an hour of his time, and his birthday happens to be tomorrow, where he turns 29. So if you don't know who Alex Propson is, Alex is originally from Wisconsin. Alex got his jump start in yachting while networking in Los Angeles. He moved to South Florida and kept up his career as a deckhand since achieving his captain's license. The career change was influenced by the pandemic after spending 8 years in sales. You can always find Alex staying active, whether practicing yoga, playing basketball, or diving into top destinations around the world. This is my interview with Alex Propson. So, I have to ask you, now that everything's out,
Yeah,
everything
man.
has aired, what is the feedback like?
The feedback on the season as a whole has been good. I was just talking to somebody, and it's like it's one of the first seasons where nobody's been fired. There hasn't been anything like detrimental that's happened emergency wise, really. Um, so I think all in all, the season went really good. A majority of the drama is interpersonal and and drunken. So
Yeah, which is what we love about Below Deck. That's my I have to say that Below Deck is how I choose my vacations. It's
okay.
yeah, depending on where the season goes, I'm like, okay, I'm going there next.
I
Yeah.
like that, man. Yeah, and Sardinia is a good option. That one gets two enthusiastic thumbs up from me.
Yeah,
Um,
I
if you can visit by boat.
okay. I've been to Italy, but I did Italy wrong because I went for like 5 days and that was not enough. That I went to Rome and I went to Sorrento and I was like, okay, this is Italy. I need to spend like 2 weeks here and bounce around.
Oh yeah, man. At least I was there. I think for a week and a half or something after we finished filming. I stuck around and I went to Rome. Or I went to Venice first and hung out there for a little while. It was amazing, like definitely bucket list. And then went to Rome for a bit and met up with some friends and had a great time there. But I mean, just the amount of like history and like stuff that there is to see and do there.
Yeah,
I mean, a week wasn't even really
yeah.
enough for me. So,
When I went to Rome, I was walking by the Colosseums and I was like, this place is centuries old. Like I'm walking where Julius Caesar, it's
yeah,
surreal.
but it's
It's
also
surreal.
like a bustling modern city as well.
Yeah,
So it's kind of a trip is like you
yeah.
have this like, it's a whole ass city, but then right next to it is like the ruins of some ancient,
Yeah.
structure, castle, coliseum, something. So it's a
Yes.
beautiful place. Strongly recommend.
So, first, I want to thank you for coming on my podcast. Of course, you didn't have to, because at this point, I am a nobody. So, I greatly appreciate you giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, the timing was great. I think that yeah, I mean your show seems like a ton of fun, and I did a little bit of research, and
Uh-oh.
yeah, I think after the reunion there was a lot that didn't get to be said and shared, so the
Yeah.
timing was right as well.
Yes.
Super.
Everything aligned.
Thanks
Everything
for
aligned.
holding the space and having a platform.
Yes, I appreciate it. It was I've wanted to do this for years, but you don't see a lot of guys uh recapping Bravo shows. And so one of my favorite podcasts is Bra Bros. I don't know if you've heard of them, But once they started doing their thing, I was like, okay, maybe I could do a podcast too. And I started like 2.5 months ago, and then here we are.
Okay, well, happy
Yeah.
to be in the pilot season here.
Yes. So I want to take it back before you go on below deck. So I read in your bio that you're from Wisconsin.
Yes.
Wisconsin. What part are you from?
From like the Appleton area. It's like between Appleton and Green Bay. So the specific area I'm from is really rural. It's Kaukauna, Freedom. But it's kind of landmarked by Green Bay in the if you look at
Okay.
Wisconsin, like a mitt, it's like
Yeah,
in this area right here. Yeah, so I'm from a pretty rural area. Not a whole lot like landmark wise, but we have the Green Bay Packers, and that's kind of what
that's
people
true.
think of
That's true.
Wisconsin. So,
So how were you growing up? Like, did were you the cool kid? Were you shy? What did you play sports?
um, all of that
Okay.
actually. I had a unique upbringing. I was homeschooled for most of my youth up until high school.
Okay.
So that gave me kind of a unique spin on things, especially in an area like that, as rural as it was. But then, yeah, I mean, I've always been very social, outgoing, um, definitely willing to take chances and risks. So nobody was really surprised back home when they found out that I was moving to Los Angeles and then I was moving to
Okay.
Florida and then I was on a reality show, and none of it's really come as a huge shock to anybody. So I think, yeah, I mean, I like to I like to think that I'm pretty much the same person in every room I'm in. Um, so nobody was too shocked with who they saw on the show.
So you knew growing up there that okay, I'm not going to stay here for the rest of my life. I'm going to get out and explore.
Yeah, well, I didn't. Um, I guess I always kind of felt that way, but it wasn't until I was in my early 20s. So shit.
How old are you?
I'm 20, I'm turning 29 tomorrow, actually.
Okay. Okay. Oh, happy early birthday. That's awesome. Oh, snap.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, I kind
Oh
of
my
stopped
gosh.
celebrating them now as we get closer to
Yeah.
next decade. But yeah, so it wasn't until I was in my early 20s. I was in real estate and I was pretty comfortable in Wisconsin. I love Wisconsin. I love the area I'm from. And there was a time where I was like, man, I guess this is where I'm gonna be, and I was okay with that. And then I had some stuff that kind of happened in my personal life. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a long shot here and I'm going to try traveling for the first time, like out of the country.
Yeah.
Um, so I went and I signed up for this volunteer program in Thailand. And I stayed there for 3 months, or was supposed to stay there for 3 months, and ended up staying quite a bit longer. And then when I came home from that, and I, had been all over the world, I kind of looked at my small town and was like, hey, I think I'm at a point in my life where I'm young enough to make a change, and I have the vision to make a change right now, and decided to move to California. So inadvertently, yeah, I just kind of ended up roaming a little bit.
I one thing, in my group of friends, a lot of us love to travel the world, but one thing Americans don't do is leave the country. People
Right.
like to go, you know, stay in the country. Maybe they'll go as far as Mexico or maybe Puerto Rico. But like as far as that, I think the statistic is like I think only 10% of American US citizens have a passport.
Wow, that's 10% is significantly
I
lower.
could be wrong.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not
I
a
won't,
journalist.
but I believe you. Yeah, I think that, and that's how people from Wisconsin were, it was a big deal if we went to Chicago. Like that was it's a
Yeah.
2 hour drive or a 3 hour drive. But that was significant. And I was just like, man, every time I, you know, leave the state, it's exhilarating to me. So
Yeah.
I decided to, fly literally to the other side of the world, and I took a 15-hour flight to China and woke up in China, and
Oh
I
my
was
gosh.
never been out of the country.
Holy cow.
Like, oh man, this place is
Go.
a lot bigger than I thought.
Yes.
So
Well,
your
yeah.
perspective changes, and I think that that shift in perspective is something that kind of scares a lot of people. Um,
Mhm.
but especially in the world of yachting, it's everyone kind of thinks the same. I guess
Yeah. I mean,
everyone
you
roaming.
you can't you can't grow as a person unless you step outside your comfort zone or your bubble that you live within.
Yeah, or at least have an open mind to people that do, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so for me it was experiencing the different cultures, um, and the different religions and the different
Yeah.
ideologies and ideas about things, because I had come from such a Midwestern conservative Christian background, and once you break out of that mold a little bit, um, and you realize that there's people in the world who don't even know what conservative Christian
Yeah.
beliefs are. Your perspective definitely shifts.
Yeah.
What's valuable and important definitely changes. So
Well, because at the end of the day, it comes down to who you are as a person, not like what political party that you follow or your ideology.
correct.
That's
Yeah.
what matters. Yeah.
And I mean, like people in third world countries, they're worried about what they're going to eat for dinner and where they're going to get fresh water and how they're going to survive winter and things
Yeah.
like that. So they aren't thinking about any of the foolish things that we stress and
Yes.
give ourselves anxiety about in the
Yeah.
U.S. So seeing
Yeah.
that firsthand and seeing the joy and excitement that they lead life with, not having a quarter of what we have,
Yeah.
opportunity we have in the States, that's probably the thing that was the most eye opening.
So I know you said you're turning 29 tomorrow, and speaking of traveling the world, so I turned 31 in March, but my 30th birthday last March, I was nervous about turning 30 because I was like, where I am at 29 is not what I thought I was going to be, where I thought I was going to be. So instead of celebrating with friends, I went on a 6-day solo trip to Costa Rica and rented a car and drove around the country and had the time of my life.
Yeah.
And I met some guy, Juan, and his girlfriend, like on an ATV adventure in the jungle. And him and I were like sitting on the beach because we like he and his girlfriend invited me out for drinks after. And he was just like, you're so lucky to be from the States. He was like, there's not many opportunities here, but like agriculture, tourism, and that's pretty much it. And it's like, I was like, wow, I freak out about the trivial things in my life. And I'm like, here are people who were like, you see people walking on the side of the road, like carrying baskets of fruits, just trying to make a living. And it does open your perspective and makes you reflect like, okay, like my life is not as bad as I think it is or stressful.
Totally. Yeah. And if, not quoting your statistics, but if 10% of Americans, only 10% of Americans have passports, that means even less of them are traveling internationally, means that there's, a whole mass majority of the population of the US that isn't having those experiences or isn't
Yeah.
receiving that perspective. So, yeah, I mean, if I had one piece of advice to young adults, it would be to get outside of your comfort zone, go out on a limb. That's where the fruit is the saying. So,
That's where the
um,
fruit is. I like that.
yeah, so get out there and get that because it can alter you as a human being, and it's
Yeah.
almost always for the better.
Yeah, I agree. So you moved to California, LA, I assume.
Yep. Yeah, literally the heart, downtown LA is where I was at first. So
And how long were you there?
I lived in LA for 3 years.
Okay. And then, so after LA for 3 years, then you moved to Southern Florida.
Correct. Yeah. Then I moved to Miami, and then I made my way up to Fort Lauderdale, which is a little bit north of Miami. So yeah, when I was in Asia, I met a girl, fell in love. We traveled around a little bit, and she lived in LA. I was in Wisconsin, so I was like, you know what, this is the perfect opportunity for me to get out of Wisconsin. Packed all my stuff, sold all my stuff, property,
Oh
I own
wow.
property and stuff, sold all of that, and moved to Los Angeles. And that was in 2019. Um, yeah, 2019. And shortly, within 8 months of being there or whatever, a little pandemic started, a little thing we all seem to forget about.
Yes.
So, I got to experience Los Angeles pre, during, and a little bit here post
Yeah.
pandemic. But yeah, being there while the city and the world was going through all of that was tumultuous, I will say, and it was something that shook me a little bit because it was my first time really taking a chance and getting outside of Wisconsin. And then, I have a global pandemic hit. So I don't regret the move at all. And I love the city of Los Angeles. I still visit frequently. But yeah, so when I got into yachting, which happened while I was there, and the opportunity came for me to move to Southern Florida, which is kind of the yachting hub of the U.S.
Yeah.
Um, it made sense career wise, and it made sense economically at the time as well, because LA was and still isn't uh, fully recovered from
No.
what happened during the pandemic. So that's what brought me to South Florida.
So you said you got your captain's license in California?
I got all the hours that I needed for my captain's
Okay.
license in California out of Marina Del Rey. And then when I got to Fort Lauderdale, um, made a friend who owns a captain's school. It was like, hey, you got everything, you got all the credentials. I've worked with you extensively. You'd be an amazing captain. So basically, it was just a career move from
Yeah.
deckhand to captain on these charter boats, and it made sense for me. And that it was already kind of what I love doing, so it was a very duh kind of move to kind of go back to educating myself, going through the Coast Guard program, um,
Okay.
completing that test, and starting to work as a captain. And fortunately, in Florida, there's quite a bit of work for us U.S. Coast Guard captains. So
So, I mean, where do you want to take, you know, having your captain's license, like captain of your own boat and do your own day charter and start a business? Or would you possibly be open to being a future below deck captain several years down the line?
yeah, good question. So there's a lot of different, I guess, avenues in the industry. One is the super yacht stuff, and the captains that you guys see on TV: Captain Glenn, Captain Sandy, Captain Lee, um, Captain Jason,
Hmm.
uh, and the newest member that I can't think of his name. Those guys have taken basically the license that I have, and they have built on it like extensively. They've
Yeah.
spent their entire career in the maritime industry and in the super yacht industry, because for every license upgrade, it requires hours at sea, and those hours need to be spent on the size of vessel that you want to future captain.
Oh,
So these guys
okay.
have spent, their entire career doing that.
Yeah.
It's really impressive and really admirable. For me, it was never really my goal to work on a super yacht. That was never like, like, oh, I want to go and do that. For me, I was always land based. I was always doing day charters. I was into scuba diving, into fishing, into, those types of things. So for me, I was always, that's kind of how I was introduced to the industry. And that's kind of where I saw myself staying, with the eventual goal of buying a boat, starting a
Okay.
diving charter business was my original
That's
plan. So that's kind of where I saw it going. Now that I've, experienced a little bit more of the international yachting scene, I wouldn't be opposed to doing more of it. But as far as being a captain goes, um, I don't know if I'm gonna take it as far as, a lot of these other captains. It's
Yeah.
really, you really, really gotta want it. And I don't know in this phase of life if that's quite where I'm at. So I would say that my endeavors are gonna be more entrepreneurial than
Okay.
anything else. But yeah, hope to be land based.
Okay. That's awesome. So, okay, so you're living in South Florida. How does one get involved in the casting process for Below Deck? Does someone recommend you? Do they slide in your DMs? Did you see a casting for it?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways that I'm aware of. For me, I just had on my Instagram all of my maritime credentials because that's how people kind of book you for work.
Okay.
So I had in there that I was a captain, um, and I had in there a few of my other licenses and things like that. So one of the recruiters for the show saw that, and I had kind of the image, I guess, they were looking for. And they asked me to do the show. And it took me a little while. I wasn't really quite sure. I hadn't watched a ton of it. But eventually the timing in my life made sense with their casting process made sense. And that was my journey. But I know that there are also ways to apply to the show. I know that they also, I believe, do some sort of casting call process. Um, but the majority of the people that I know were either sought out or had gone through the application process.
Okay. So you're in the process of casting, and like, how long does the process last until you find out you're on the show and you have to fly across the world?
Um, Once again, it's different for everyone. But my experiences with these production companies are they run it pretty much to the last minute. So for Below Deck, I think I had um, maybe 3 weeks notice before I was going to be out there. It could have been a little bit more, but it wasn't significant. So it was enough time for me to get my affairs settled here, let the boats know that, like, the boats that I was captaining, let them know that I was going to take off for a while, um, and then get over all the way to Sardinia. But yeah, I know it's different for everybody
Okay.
because sometimes they like have people that they lock in. Sometimes they change the cast last minute, or something pops up with Yachties, shocker, where they can't do it anymore. They can't leave the boat they're working on, or their yard period changes, or something happens where they aren't going to be the right fit for the show anymore. So I would say it's different for everyone. It depends where in the casting process they kind of get a hold of you, and you guys start communication.
If you see me like looking off to the side or looking down, I have like questions written everywhere. So that's what's going on. So did you have any expectations before you started filming once you got there? I know you said that you didn't really see the show before.
Um, no, I think I went into the whole thing with a pretty open mind. So it's season, I don't even know, of Below Deck with all the spin-offs and everything.
Yeah.
The production of the show has it down to a science in a way. So they know you were casted for a reason. They know what they want out of you. There's no expectations, but you're set up for success, I would say. So as long as you go into it with an open mind, that's what I decided to do. I kind of had the mindset of, okay, I'm here to learn. It's my first time really working on a super yacht. Learn to. It was my first time working on a sailing yacht. So I was like hoping to learn sailing. But I knew that I didn't need to come in with an ego or anything
Yeah.
because I'm the new person on deck. I didn't have any real prior experience. I didn't even really feel like I totally belonged there. And then you just wake up in Sardinia one day, and all of a sudden it's time to go to the boat,
Yeah.
and we just walk on board. And I was kind of like, oh, I don't know, how this is gonna go. But yeah, open mind definitely is important. And then I think just approaching it with kind of the with a humble servant's attitude. Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of my method, anyhow. I know it's hard for some people.
No, I mean, it shouldn't be hard. It shouldn't. So it's the first day of filming, and you get on the boat. You are introduced to everyone. You're introduced to Captain Glenn, and then he sits you guys down and tells you that Gary has COVID and he's not going to be on the boat. Now I know you said you were pretty green with being on sailing yachts, and then there's Chase, and then Colin is what, engineer of the boat. So like, did you come on when you found that out? Where you're like, oh gosh, here we go, like shit's about to hit the fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's my first time doing any kind of TV. It's my first time being in a situation like that. So, I wasn't really shocked that there was some sort of hiccup right off the bat. That's also just kind of how the industry works. But, all in all, I think that first charter without Gary was kind of a good way for us to, learn sink or
Get your
swim.
feet wet, yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of gave us an opportunity to be like, all right, these are the people you're working with. You don't know anything about their personalities. You don't know anything about their work ethic, their hygiene, like anything. You don't know anything about these people. They're just like complete strangers, and then you're cast together in a relatively stressful situation, like day one. Um, I think that charter, even though it wasn't the best, and the boat never left the dock, and Gary was like everything that could go wrong did go wrong. I think that core group of people, um, for us, it made us all really close right away, and it made us have some patience with each other right off the bat, because we're like, okay, this has to be the hardest this can be.
Yeah.
So from here on out, we know that we're willing to work together, and we're capable of doing this successfully. So I think the way that it worked out, honestly, like, you couldn't write a better TV show. Like the way that
Honestly.
it happened, like, was just so on point. So yeah, no,
Yeah,
no.
one of the good things about Below Deck is that you pretty much get a new cast every season. And so like you really can't get hooked on anyone. Of course there are some people that do multiple seasons, Daisy, Gary, Colin, Hannah, I think from Below Deck Med. Um, but one thing I like about Below Deck is that you get to meet people every season. But this this cast for season 4 was so good, and everything was so organic, but also dysfunctional at the same time and raw. I'm just like, I assume they're probably about to film another season. Because did you film this time last year?
Yeah, it was over the summer. So
Okay.
yeah,
Eh,
that's the Mediterranean yachting season. It's usually this
I
time.
would love for, I mean, it's probably too late, but I would love to see you guys all on the same boat again because it
Yeah,
was it was
I
good.
mean, who knows? Maybe someday.
Yeah.
It definitely went really well. As far as making it, I get a lot of comments and messages about, oh, we want to see all of you guys back. It's
Yeah.
like, wow, that wouldn't make for a very exciting TV show, having
True.
the
True.
entire cast back. We would run out of drama pretty fast. So from a casting standpoint, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But maybe someday, we'll
Yeah.
maybe Chase will take us all on a sailboat or
Yeah.
something.
That would be nice. A little spin-off. Uh,
Exactly.
so you make it through your first charter, even though you could not leave the dock, even though you were missing Gary. You guys got a pretty good tip, which was surprising because that lady was complaining, crying that this was the worst trip she's ever taken.
Um, yeah, it was an interesting group of women. I had a great time with them. It was very stressful first charter for us because we're all just, like I explained, getting to know each other, figuring out where stuff is on the boat. Nothing's working. We can't find stuff. So we were kind of running around like crazy, but we did try to, provide them with the best service we could, all things considered. And yeah, the tip was very generous. The primary was a really patient and kind woman. And, as for the rest, I, that's the worst trip you've ever been on. No, I think your vacations are going well. So
Yeah. um, so it's your first night out with the crew. You guys have a good time out. You guys come back to the yacht. Things get interesting in the hot tub, and you end up making out with Daisy uh, and Lucy, and Chase makes out with Madison. Do you think that?
many times.
Do you think that Gary coming on the boat shifted the dynamics of how things started that first night out with the crew versus when he actually got on the boat?
Significantly, yeah. I think if you ask anybody from the crew, like that first night out, um, after going through that first charter, and we all leaning on each other, and just getting to know each other. That first night out was just such a blast. We just were blowing off steam, and yeah, it was so much fun. One of the best crew nights out of the entire season. I think Gary coming in. For the second charter, I think, yeah, it shifted the dynamic, absolutely, as it would with any time you introduce a new character into a tight knit group. Um, and then on top of that, him being uh, in a leadership role, and not only that, but it being the boat that he works on full time. And he's like, okay, well, now I've got these guys, who think they can do this without me, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to assert myself and show them, who's boss, which in a way we needed, and in another way he might not have gone about doing in the most constructive manner, but but like all in all, yeah, I mean, it shifts the dynamic. I don't think it really would have changed the outcome much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, um, Gary finds out that you made out with Daisy. Do you think that he got a little jealous once he heard that and felt like, you were the one he needs to watch out for?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think that. He said that on Watch It Happens Live. So we all know that. I didn't know anything about Gary or Daisy or Colin really coming into this. And as it turned out, for everyone that watched the reunion, there was a lot going on that none of us new cast members really knew. Like kind of hooking up with Daisy that first night, none of that made sense with everything else that I now know was going on. Had I known all that, maybe drunk Alex would have steered clear, probably not. But it's, yeah. So I think it muddied the water a little bit, but and then it maybe kind of put a target on me from the get go in Gary's eyes. Um, but yeah, I was thinking about that after filming the reunion. It's like, man, remember that hot tub session with Daisy? Like, how does that really fit
Yeah.
into this whole web that was going on?
Well, the thing, he never had competition on the show. Like Colin, was always in a relationship, and so like there was no one to compete with. And then here you are, and your curly locks, and then he's like, oh shit, here we go. It's made out with Daisy. He doesn't even know how he feels about Daisy. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah. I mean, I can see how he would feel that way, and if I uh, had a little bit less, um, I guess, control over my emotions and in those types of situations, there's many ways you could see yourself in the things Gary was doing as reactions to everything else he was
yeah.
experiencing. Um, but in a leadership role, um, when we all have the same objective, it just wasn't
Yeah.
handled or executed quite constructively as all.
Well, that's a common pattern with Gary. Um, so one thing I noticed you said in one of your confessionals is that you usually date models with daddy issues. What about you? Do you think? Why do you think you attract daddy models with daddy issues? Excuse me. What about yourself? Do you feel like you attract them?
That I couldn't tell you. That was said kind of as a one-off joke and was edited in there to look like more of a serious statement.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, like with my ex-girlfriends, there's a lot of um, likeness, I will say. So when they ask like what your type is, I like immediately was like, all right, let's look at precedent here. You know, that's one pretty consistent theme. So it was more said as in jokingly than anything else. But I don't know why I attract what I attract, which is I think if we all figured that out, the world would be a different place. But
That's true. That's
I'm
true.
glad that I can attract anyone. I'm
Yeah.
grateful.
That's, I'm sure once the show was airing, your DMs were blowing up.
Yeah, man, but mostly with you know, I would say 95% positive encouragement and feedback. Maybe 3% business opportunities and 2%, you know, interested
For-
people. Yeah, it was a good balance. And to anybody that's reached out in any of those facets, it is well received. And
yeah.
sorry if I don't always write back. It's a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm sure. It's because, virtually before you come on the show, you're no one. You're another person in the world, and then all of a sudden the spotlight's on you. And then with social media now, you can almost find anyone. And some
Yeah.
people are very nice, and some people are very nasty, and then some people are very curious. What's the like weirdest or strangest thing someone has asked you or requested on Instagram that you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like most of the you don't know there's no like roadmap on how to navigate it. So for me, like most of the messages are read. If I don't know you or it's not something pertaining to me or my career, I don't often reply.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely been some unique and passionate requests. Um, Plenty for pictures of things, plenty of requests for me to start an OnlyFans page. There's been, yeah,
People
some
are
very,
bold.
very
People are
lovely,
bold.
images and self
Oh,
photographs and videos. And,
oh,
you guys we're all humans and we're all valuable and,
yeah.
consider
Wow. That is bold.
where
Okay.
where you slide
Oh,
in.
wow.
But
It's
the fact that anybody's messaging me at all, once again, I'm very grateful for, and I'm happy to hear from people in any facet as long as it's respectful to myself and to themselves.
so, one question I have. So you're given the night shift. How boring is the night shift? Like, because I know you're on anchor watch. You have to like clean up the deck before the morning shift wakes up. How much of that time is spent, working, and how much of that time is spent watching anchor?
Yeah, so I mean, this can be a brief segment. There's really not that much to talk about, but we trade off the day and night shift every charter
Okay.
is how it's supposed to be structured. My first night shift, never having really done an anchor watch for that size of a vessel before, and hearing that there was some things that happened in past seasons on anchor watch that not good.
Yeah.
That first one, I was really just like very focused on the wind and the anchor and making sure we're not moving around and our position, certain landmarks on shore and things like that. So I was pretty anxious the first time. That honestly, I didn't get as much or as good of a cleaning in as I was supposed to, which was coached kind of and corrected. And you know, when you're on anchor watch, it is very quiet, eerily quiet. You're by yourself. But the point is for whoever is up at night to clean the whole boat, top to bottom, front to back, the exterior of the boat, so that it's perfectly, clean and beautiful when the guests wake up in the morning. So 95% of the time should be spent on getting the boat prepared. That other 5% watching anchor and making sure you know
Yeah.
nothing.
Didn't Madison also work night shift as well?
Yeah, so their shifts were a little bit different. So night shift
Okay.
for them means that they stayed up until midnight or something, like prepping things for the next morning. Um, so yeah, we would switch off. Sometimes it'd be Lucy or Mads up, late with whoever was on the night shift. Um, but that kind of became an issue of contention later in the season. So
Yes, it did. Speaking of that, so we get to the point Gary and Madison are vibing, but we also see that you and Madison have a flirtatious banter. Um, I think you passed out in the hot tub the first time that Madison and Gary hooked up. I
yeah,
think
like
that was the case.
crew night out. Yeah, I got pretty created for sure. It was time.
You said that if you were more forward with Madison, she would probably have chosen you over Gary. I know you said you're not thirsty like that. You're not forward like that. Does that mean that you're used to being pursued and not the other way around?
Maybe, but I think more so. It was such a short window. I'm
Yeah.
juggling so much. I'm trying to figure out this boat. It's my first time being on TV, and there's anxieties that come with that. Trying to figure out your place in, a totally new crew. So for me, like hooking up was not very, very, very close to the top of my like
Yeah.
to-do list every single day. And on top of that, you're just getting to know these people. Like we had only known each other for several days at the time. Um, so yeah, we were all becoming friends, getting to know each other. Um, and then yeah, Gary having been on TV before, knows what he's doing on this boat, doesn't have any of these other anxieties or things really on his mind other than, coming in and finding someone to hook up with. He's just much more forward and aggressive.
Yes.
And that worked in the instance with Madison. Right?
I,
So
I know you said that Gary knows what he's doing on this boat. Do you think that Gary also knows what he's doing when it's time to come for filming? Because I think of your day off, you guys are I think you guys are having dinner and Daisy and Gary are off talking. Everyone at the table is like, what's going on? What's happening? And then we find out that Gary revealed that him and Daisy had sex after they agreed to not mention anything. Do you think like Gary just has a lack of awareness, or you think like he does some things because he knows he's being filmed?
I think a lot of Gary's a pretty shit, man. It's the best way to say it. Gary, Gary's wears his heart on his sleeve, I guess. So, a lot of the time it's very easy to tell what's going on with Gary. And I think a lot of the viewers can tell as well. I mean, it comes through the screen. You can tell exactly where his head is at and exactly why he's doing certain things. It's almost
It's
child
calculated.
in many
Yeah.
ways. It's just
Yeah.
very,
That's true.
very simple, I guess. And then
Yeah.
also him, that's the word I was avoiding, but there's also this side to Gary, he's been on TV before. He knows how to play this game that he was kind of creating. And in that specific situation, that was done very deliberately and in a way to manipulate his position
Yeah.
with Daisy and Colin. So I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think that, like, for me, I would have never even thought of that. Like, oh, if it's announced, then it becomes part of this storyline.
Yes, the storyline. Yeah.
Um, so I would have never even thought of that. So I think, yeah, he has a unique uh, position where he's been in this, doing this long enough um, that he can kind of, wield that and use it to
Yes.
storyline to his favor. So
Yeah. That's
for
quite
better,
interesting.
for better and worse.
Yeah, because I don't know if that's this storyline worked out in his favor.
I would say yeah. I would say no. But at the end of the day, he's King GK. So
Yeah. So it gets to the next morning. I assume the next morning you guys find out that Gary and Daisy hook up. Is that when things got really tense and everyone was sneaking off in rooms talking? How
yeah,
far from when you found out from when that whole thing happened at the
well,
on your day off?
I didn't know that that happened on the day off. So that's the other thing, is like a lot of us watching the show that are like from the cast, when we watch it back, excuse me, um, we don't see those conversations and stuff. So we didn't know what was going on totally. But yeah, when the heads of department are all sneaking off to have these conversations and we can, there's tension everywhere. We were all just kind of like, someone's got to get some work done here. So we were, we were still working our butts off every single day. Wash, rinse, repeat, quite literally. And
Yeah.
um, we were like, well, clearly there's something going on. Clearly we're not a part of it. And it wasn't until I think, I made a few comments not knowing what was going on. And then Madison had to kind of, Mads, sorry, Mads. She had to
Does
kind
she
of,
does she prefer Mads instead of Madison?
yeah, she preferred.
Okay. Mads, I'm sorry, Mads. If you
Uh,
watch this,
yeah.
Mads.
So it wasn't until she was privy to some of it because she got roped into all of that. And she finally kind of told me what was going on a little bit. And I was like, oh, damn. But truthfully, it didn't affect what I was doing day to day at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, I still had a job to do. I still had a goal, which was to earn money over the course of the season.
Yeah.
So I was very focused on that. Chase was very focused on that. Lucy and Mads were very focused on that. Alicia certainly was
Yeah.
very focused on that. So it was the heads of department, I would say, um, that if anyone got distracted or
And did not lead by example.
um, well, in many ways they did too, because they also work. Colin and Daisy work really, really hard.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, when you're in a leadership role, um, like I said before, I use the phrase, "There's no roadmap for how to do that."
Yeah.
For leadership, there is a lot of roadmaps. You could read any one of thousands of books that are written just on the topic
Yeah.
of effective leadership and how to lead people. And
Yeah.
even if you don't read any of those, and even if you possess zero leadership skills, you still have the ability to lead by example.
Yeah.
um, even the most inequipped leader in the world, as long if he's in the pits, with his people and he's leading by example, it can still be an effective team. So yeah, the heads of department maybe at times got distracted. Daisy works really, really hard. Colin was clearly working his butt off, just trying
Yeah.
to
He
so
saved the
hard.
season.
Exactly. And Gary's Gary, but you know, it I think at a certain point and maybe not through all of the season, but at a certain point, the focus definitely shifted from the work and the team objective um, to their drama a little
Yeah.
bit. And I think we corrected it, and it was an extremely successful season in many
Yes.
months, and that is due to our leadership. But yeah, there was a point in the season that I think maybe we got off track a little bit. Fortunately, the sheep didn't follow the shepherd. Um, but yeah, I think I think it did affect things for some
So
people.
so there are a couple of moments where you unintentionally asked questions or made a joke or made comments that ended up being the catalyst for drama on the show. So this banter happens between you and Mads, where I think you said, why are you so bloated? And she said, Aunt Flo came to town, and so then it ends up being like the final drama of the end of the season. I believe you told Colin, and then Colin told Gary.
Yeah. So how it happened basically is me and Mads were messing around, like just teasing a little bit, like we always do. And she said that, but I was like we were also partying. So it was like that comment. Um, went in one year and just kind of didn't hear the rest of it, never thought about it again until the next morning when I went into the boys' cabin and Chase or Colin or someone was talking about how they walked in and they saw, you know, Gary doing what he was doing. And without even like my brain processing it, I was just like, wait, that's not right because Matt said this. And then Chase and Colin both you
Yeah.
know, shocked. And that's how it all kind of happened. So for me, it was just a piece of information, like drunken information that was registered in there for some reason. And then it came out very, I'll say innocently. There
Yeah.
was no, you know, there's no malintent, which Mads knows as well. But yeah, that one little, slip up of my tongue, which was relatively rare in the season. I'm usually pretty articulate and well calculated, I guess. But yeah, that one slip up definitely was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back.
I mean, it led to great television. So, I mean, even though it was unintentional, I think you deserve a round of applause for contributing to a great, final two episodes.
Had to contribute some drama. So
Yes. So, one thing, so that conflict happened on the last charter of the season between the thruple guest. Were you asleep at the time that conflict was happening?
um, shit, man, I don't even remember. I know, no, I think I was awake because I was on days for that last charter. So
Okay.
I was awake for most of it. I could see, them getting more and more intoxicated, but nobody really knew what was going on. It was like between the three of them
Yeah.
at a certain point. Um, so it wasn't until like that dinner where we were like, okay, this isn't good. Yeah, this could end really badly in a lot of different ways. And that's when the captain had to get involved. And then Chase woke up and he was on not only night watch, but thruple watch.
Yes. So, are the charter guests, because we see them obnoxious, drunk, demanding. Are the charter guests usually like that, or do they get a bad edit when it comes to the show and when we're watching?
Um, I'm gonna say that for the most part, the production team isn't, you know, they aren't making things up.
Yeah.
Uh, these are very eclectic people that are coming aboard and that are doing this type of vacation, and they're all so lovely. Like for the most part, they're all very kind. There isn't really many people from the charter season that I wouldn't love to have on board again as charter guests. um, but once you build in the amount of drinking that
Yeah.
happens, the relationships in between the charter guests. That's when things can, I guess, get a little wild. So there wasn't really there was never really anybody who was, upset or mean to the crew in any way
Yeah.
or disrespectful to the crew. All of the charter guest drama was basically in their friend group, and usually happened towards the end of the day when they spent most of the day drinking. So I think it kind of speaks to it's almost like a social experiment in
Yeah.
a way. It's any group of friends that you put in that situation, and they can have any drink they want, and they can have as much as they want, and then it's the end of the day and you're all drunk. I think we could all probably admit that our friend groups would have some drama as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the television writes itself. They know that when they're coming into it as well. But there's no way to prepare for that type of thing. But I don't think it's bad editing, and I don't think it's any type of bad character on the guest's behalf. I think it's just that the most interesting parts happen to be after they've been drinking all day. So.
So I have just a handful of questions and then we can wrap this up because I want to. Your birthday is tomorrow. Um, so you get to the reunion. How long are you guys filming for the reunion?
The reunion was also shot in one day, so it was all remote, obviously, um, and that was pretty much just one afternoon. I want to say like
Okay.
3 or 4 hours, and that's with all of the production breaks and everything in there as well. So really, what you see on the reunion, um, it's not chopped up a whole lot. I mean, they cut out the boring parts and the parts where the audio is bad and all of that, but it's pretty much what was shot is what you guys are seeing.
Were you surprised when Gary admitted that he doesn't watch the show back?
Um, Two things crossed my mind. One, I was a little disappointed, which I think I talked about on the reunion. It's like we
Mhm.
have this very unique opportunity to play back what how we behaved and how we treated other people and how we are how people perceive us basically and how we affect other people, and to not watch that back seems really you know selfish in a way. I guess it's just like you have no interest in
Gr-
growing from that at
Yes, I
all.
was about to say growing. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a little bit, I was just like, really, man. Uh, but then somebody else brought something up on one of my Instagram lives recently, and they were like, and this person, whoever they were, fan out there, they said we think Gary watches all of it, and maybe more so
Mm.
than anyone, but disapproved of, you know, his behavior and his actions, and didn't really want to, um, you know, admit to all of that. He was very apologetic for a lot of it on the reunion, but those apologies mean a lot less when a year has gone by since it happened, and you might not even really remember all of the, you know, what all went down. So, um, I wasn't shocked, but I was a little disappointed. And then somebody else brought up that point, and that, I don't know. Either way, uh, we all did things we weren't totally proud of. We all had good and bad moments, and I think for the most part, Gary included, I think we do intend on growing from that and being better than we were last year. And I think a lot of us have become better than we were last year. So I hope that for everyone. I would never hope that somebody is stuck in their ways, because changing for the better is always welcome.
Yes, amen to that. Do you feel like there was anything at the reunion that wasn't addressed or you didn't get to speak to that you would like to speak to now?
Um, Not much. I think the Gary, Daisy, and Colin thing was kind of, I mean, it was an overwhelming theme of the entire season, and then the reunion was no exception. So for a lot of us, uh, first year crew on there, there was a lot of things that we might have wanted to speak on, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head. We butt heads, we all did at certain points. And even with me and Gary, I don't have any bad blood. I don't. I was never
Yeah.
upset really with the guy, and even on the show. That's why I run up to people and I'm like, "What's going on? Explain to me what's going on, so we can sort through this and get back." That's how I approach those types of things. So yeah, I wish him nothing but the best. Um, we didn't totally work on deck, and whether that was due to my greenness or his style of leadership, um, it just didn't work between us, and that's totally fine. Not pictured is all the nights and the times that me and Gary had a great time together, and
Mm,
got to know each other and all the cool conversations we had, and so at the end of the day, we're all friends. I would love to reconnect with Gary at some point and get his take on all of this. We haven't had that opportunity, but I'm very open to it. So,
so life after Bravo. Have you made any friends within the Bravo universe become cool with outside of the Below Deck cast?
yeah, definitely. I've been blessed to find myself in some rooms with some super cool people, specifically in the below deck world, like Katie Floody and Malia White. I've gotten really close with them, and they've kind of encouraging me through this below deck season. So
Yeah.
shout out, girls. And then yeah, some of the I've hung out with some of the Summer's House, Martha's Vineyard crew, some of the Summer House, Winter House crew, and
Would you ever do summer or winter house if asked?
I think I would. Yeah, I think I would.
Okay.
The idea, Jared.
Bravo. Get on it. Get on it, Bravo.
But
Um, so my last question. Um, what lesson did you learn about yourself this season after watching back? And is there anything you wish you would have done differently?
um, I'll answer the second question first, and that's no. Um, I think for that time in my life, everything happened. I could sit here and say like, "Oh, I wish I would have drank less," or "I wish I would have given Mads more attention," or "I wish," I could have said all that stuff. But truthfully, no. For everything that was going on with me last year, that was the most organic and realistic representation of who I was when we were filming that TV show. And yeah, I wouldn't take back any of that. It's more so cool just to have like that season of your life
Yeah.
cemented somewhere. And even though some stuff was good, some stuff was bad, um, I'll take the bad with the good, because the good outweighs almost all of it. And I made some amazing friends and had a really cool experience in it. So would not take anything back. Um, and then the first part of that question, um, what have I, or how have I grown from all of that? I think I I think I've just become a little bit more impeccable with my word. So even though I I I don't speak as much as other people, maybe. I've learned the strength of those words and how they can impact specifically in a social setting. And words cast spells, which was written in the book The Four Agreements, fantastic book. But understanding the power of those words and how they affect people around you and the role that they play in relationships and friendships is definitely the thing that I saw plenty of examples of from the show, not with myself and with the rest of the crew, and something that I'm actively working on to this day.
I did notice that you have a way with words because I think in the first part of the reunion, you were so eloquently saying how Gary's leadership skills and his communication with how to do your job on the deck were lacking. And maybe if he would have handled things in a better way or worked on his communications, that things you would have had better direction. And I'm sitting back and watching, and I was like, oh, does Gary even know that Alex is like giving him like a really good lashing right now, but like in such a calm, respectful manner, and where I looked at Gary and I was like, he can't even say anything back because you were so nice and respectful with it.
Yeah, it wasn't intended really as a lashing. A whole year had passed and I there was, no sharpness really in my tongue, but it was all honest and it was all how I experienced it. And I think the camera interpreted it the right way. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's difficult. There's a saying that goes, never argue with a fool because a passerby might not be able to tell who's who.
Hmm?
Uh, and I, I, I carry that one with me. And in these types of situations, there's no sense of going on camera and just hashing it out back and forth because it can all be laid out exactly how it happened. And I think
Hmm.
that's no emotion involved is sometimes the best way to sort through a problem. And that's how I tried to lay that out with no real sharpness behind it, but just saying, hey, this is how it happened. This is how it affected your team. This is how it affected the season. And I hope some of that was received in a respectful manner. And I hope that he walks away with something from it.
So, is there anything that you have coming up or anything that you would like to promote that your fans you want them to know about?
Um, I really just stay tuned, I think there's more to come from Alex, most certainly. So I'm not maybe totally done with Bravo and their productions. I appreciate all the support. There's gonna be there's gonna be some projects and things coming up that I'm sure you guys who are following me already are gonna get the inside scoop on. But for now, just thanks for going through this wild ride with me and supporting me and appreciating me for who I am and welcoming me into your homes via your TV. It's been amazing.
And for those who don't follow you, where can everyone follow you on what social media platforms?
Yeah, so best for me is Instagram. At Alex Propson is best. I'm also on Threads now. Don't totally know
Yeah,
what's
Threads, it was exciting in the beginning, and
Threads.
then it's like, oh, it's another social media platform,
Yeah,
you know.
but yeah, Instagram's the best for me. There's going to be some opportunity to come and charter boats with me down here in South Florida. So watch Instagram for updates on that. Would love to meet more of you. I'm on Cameo as well. That's a great way to interact and to meet you guys. But definitely reach out on Instagram, follow me there, and that's going to be the best way to get me to read those messages that I sometimes don't get to all.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Um, Alex, I want to thank you sincerely so much for coming on the podcast. It was a good conversation, very good conversation.
Fantastic, Jared. Yeah, I enjoyed it, man. I wish you all the success in the world with this. It takes a lot of bravery to start something like this in this current climate. So I encourage you to stick with it. I think you're a fantastic host, and I appreciate you holding the space for me to talk a little bit more, and hopefully for other people to get an inside scoop on what was going on Parsifal.
Yes, most definitely. Again, I also want to wish you a happy early birthday. I hope you have a good one. And don't be afraid of turning 30. I know you're turning 29, but
Yeah,
don't be afraid of turning 30. It's scary at first, but you know, it's good.
for sure, man. Yeah, I don't fear much anymore, so I mean, I'm excited about it. New phase of life, and hopefully get to bring you and all you Bravo fans along with me.
Yes. Anytime if you pop back up on Bravo, you're more than welcome to come back on the podcast to talk about it. We would love to have you back.
Yeah, just let me know, brother. Happy to contribute anyway.
Yes. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
You got it. God bless y'all. Peace.
Same to you. Bye.
And that was my interview with Alex Propson. I had such a good time. He is such a nice person, so warm, so open, and he just radiates great energy. I hope you all enjoyed this interview. I know I did. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you for listening. Thank you for following. Thank you for subscribing. You can always catch a brand new episode of Bravo Tea with Jared B every Wednesday and Friday. You can follow me at Bravo Tea with Jared B on Instagram, at Bravo Tea with JB on Twitter, and I'm also at Bravo Tea with Jared B on TikTok. Follow me on those social media platforms. Reach out to me. Slide in my DMs. Give me your questions. Give me your comments, and I will read them on the podcast episode, and I will give you a shout out. I greatly appreciate the support. It is so humbling. I'm so excited for this opportunity. That's all the Bravo Tea I have for you. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I love you for listening, and I will see you next time on Bravo Tea with Jared B. Well, we won't see each other, but you'll hear me. You might see me. Things are expanding. Have a good one.